Hello, good morning. Welcome to ArtCat. Good to see you. I am now here live, hopefully, fingers crossed, on 3 different formats. I'm on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. So this is. Oh, hang on a second. You don't need to hear my voice coming through my speakers. I'm going to turn down my voice in my head so I don't have to listen to myself. A bit of distraction. But yes, I did a little test earlier on this week to try and kind of get a few more people into the mix from different platforms to see how it all worked. I've just realised what, as normal, as I start off, one of my cameras decides not to work. Let's see if I can get this to work. Hang on a second. So yeah, bear with us for a few seconds while we get this all sorted out. We've got 4 views in the room already, which is great. So hello to you. I'm going to pop up my cameras. Here we go. We got they're over on Twitch and Facebook and YouTube. So when you join the room or join the chat, say hello, tell me who you are, where you're from, what you're drawing, what you're up to, and it just makes it a little bit kind of more interactive. The more you ask, the more you sort of join in and share what you're doing and things like that, and ask questions about what I'm doing, the more fun it'll be. I am kind of juggling cats at the minute. I did have the room, as you can see, it's kind of a little bit more darker this morning. Had the room quite well lit, all ready to rock and roll, and as I started, normally it's been quite grey here, obviously over Christmas and sort of the wintry time here in Northern Ireland, and what happened was the sun came over the trees, shone through my window, lovely to paint and draw with from natural light. But the problem is when you're working with cameras and things like that, it was kind of throwing lights and shadows all over the drawing surface. So I've set up some lights. I'll be able to zoom in a little bit closer to the work that we're working on this week. I've got a picture of Andrea, there she is, over on the other side of the screen there, and Andrea's my partner, and it's a picture I've had up in the studio for quite a while, and I thought I'd do a little drawing of her today. So I'll take you through the setup and start and how I kind of work the drawing and develop it, things like that. I say I've got a lovely camera that switched itself off, as I'm trying to switch that back on. Hang on a second. Right, I do believe I can get this sorted out now. So yeah, ask any questions. If you've joined me on Twitch, say hi. You can subscribe and share the site if you want to. There are plenty of other videos as well. I've been doing this for now for almost coming up to a year, believe it or not. I think it started in late March, beginning of April time. I started doing these mini broadcasts purely and simply because of COVID. I was doing live drawing classes and they were all cancelled, and it was a way of communicating with the people who used to come to my classroom and share what I was doing, hopefully encourage them to keep drawing, and yeah, just continues to go from there. So this is what it's all about, with my lovely camera here. There we go. I think I'm live again. Good. Moving around. Hopefully. There we are. Haha. See, I got it going. Good. So yeah, I'm going to set up my chat screens so I can see you all. Got a couple of people over on Twitch, so hello to you. And Facebook, who else have we got? No one's in the room just yet. Got live, got 2 there. It's good. And over on there, Desiree, you're over on YouTube. Hi Lee, sorry I haven't been here for last week. No problem. Sadly it's not always good for you, but I'll pop in when I can. That's okay. Totally fine, Desiree. I say life is busy, so you can drop in and drop out as you need to. Talk a little bit about the painting that I have up. This picture of a friend called Carly. I did a conversation with her, it must be a couple of years ago now, for a range of portraits called Mammalian. Basically, it's people I've known for the last 10 years or so, friends and family all mixed together. Sat down, had a conversation with them. So the concept was I wanted to try and do a portrait of them as close to their personality and person as I could. So it wasn't just about their likeness. So I based all the portraits on that conversation. So it's just like a little snapshot of the person, who they were. The images are quite surreal. Obviously Carly wasn't wearing a suit of armour, and she's actually holding, let's say you can't see because of the lovely lights I've got going on, she's holding, I like that a little bit better, throw some light on there. She's holding an orangutan. Flick these curtain over a little bit so you can get some more light in there. See if that works out any better. Yeah, a little bit. And she's holding an orangutan. The one question I asked everybody in the process was, if you were an animal, what would you be? And everybody chose their animal for different reasons. It's kind of their personality and their explanation as to who and what they were about. Was kind of they attributed the qualities of that to that animal, and it was a lovely way of finding out how they see them or view themselves. The rest of the portrait, as you can see, Carly's wearing a suit of armour, is based on that conversation, and not necessarily she wanted to be a warrior, but there's elements to the conversation that I sort of pulled out, and that was my kind of artistic license, kind of putting into the composition of the pictures. So there's going to be about 20 plus of these paintings. I've reintroduced myself back to the whole story of it all, because it's taken a while to develop some skills. I got to a certain stage and I was quite happy with, but I knew there was something lacking in my qualities, so I needed to practice them. It's an ongoing process for every artist. If you're starting out, don't think you have to be perfect straight away. It's something you can build upon. So I know it's quite frustrating when you're starting out, even if you've been doing it for a couple of years, things aren't quite going right, and it can be demoralizing sometimes, and I understand that. But it's to try and change the way you think about it. We often come across different elements in our work that we like and enjoy. We might find a medium that we have an affinity with, and we use that an awful lot. But then we'll hit like a plateau where we know we want to do certain things and we don't know quite how to get there. And it's to break it down into bite-sized chunks. It may be that your compositions are frustrating you. It may be that the quality of your expertise with the materials are not quite there. You see it in other people's artworks, elements that you see that you like and you can't do it, and that's a frustration for you. Change that around. If you can see it elsewhere, is to try and figure out what those elements are. So, you know, a lot of people will call it research. It's a very sort of cold word for it, because it sounds like it's boring and dull, and you've got to sit there ploughing through reams and reams and reams of information that's irrelevant before you find the nugget of gold. It can break it down into simpler forms than that. You can literally inspire yourself by viewing lots of work. So a good place to do that would be a place like Instagram, where you can almost curate the feed around the things that you like. So if you look at a lot of artwork, you'll get a lot of artwork in your feeds. If you start to follow a lot of artists, every time they show their artwork, it will pop up on your feed. But it's a great resource to find artworks that you like. You can also look at other sites like Saatchi Art online, and scroll through and look for different genres of art. So if you are an abstract artist, or you are a landscape artist, or a portrait, or a still life, or whatever the genre is, type that into the search bar and see what's out there. And you can use your own personal curation. You know, you can decide what you like, what you don't like, how you like things to just the qualities of them that you're trying to pick out input into your artwork. Once you've done that, you can analyze your own drawings, and I say analyze rather than critique or criticize your drawings. We can all put ourselves down. There's lots of areas in my drawings that I know are not as strong as I'd like them to be, but they're areas of development. That's the same for every artist throughout their career. They're always trying to push their boundaries of what they know and how they do things. So it's not to beat yourself up. It's not to punish yourself about that you could be better. It's a journey. It's that kind of X factor word. It is a journey. It is something that is an ongoing process. So as you make friends with it, it's a lot easier to deal with. Sometimes you need to go back to basics. Sometimes you need to look at how you've curated your artwork to a certain point, and you know it's not where you want it to be. And write that list down. What is it you'd like to see in your artwork? So you can maybe take each section of your list one at a time and develop that process. So if it's how you render things, how you make things soft or smooth, if it's to get more realism, if you're trying to get more lifelike, what are the qualities that you're missing? So if you analyze your drawings beside your analysis, how you look at your drawings, it can give you a guide as to where you need to go. So for example, if you're doing something that's lifelike and your proportions aren't right, proportions are something to work on. How do you work on your proportions is the next question. You can use lots of different vehicles to help you. You can take photographs of your work and put them on the computer and overlay the image onto it, so you can play with the opacity, and then you can see the image that you're drawing from and your drawing, and to see where your perception, where your drawing has slightly drifted. Now, part of it normally is down to people kind of rushing, that they wanted to get on and do something a little bit better, and what you find is that speed or kind of impatientness, where you just want to get better straight away, can often be the thing that trips you up, where you're running a little bit too fast and you have to kind of slow yourself down and be more methodical. And any new skill that you learn in your artwork can feel quite mechanical. You learn where proportions are, and you have to think about where certain things are bit by bit. Whereas as you start to assimilate that knowledge and you know it, you don't have to think that sort of mechanical process. You can just see our proportions are right, because if the head is here, the bottom of the chin has to go there, and the eyes have to go here to follow the plane. Observation is key. The more you look at your reference, the better your drawing will be, because you can adjust. I've seen people draw a lot in the past where, especially say life classes, where the model will be sat in front of them, and they'll take a cursory glance at the model, and it's got a head, an arm, a leg, and then they'll go back to their drawing surface and just concentrate on drawing and not look at their reference. And then they get frustrated that the foot is too big or the knee is too big, because they've isolated when they're drawing. They're looking at these things in separation, and they're concentrating on that drawing so much that they've kind of forgotten what it is they're actually looking at. And you have to kind of do both at the same time. That's why today, as you can see on my screen, I've got my reference picture of Andrea up right in front of me beside where I'm going to be drawing, so I can easily check them. I put it up on the screen for you so you can see whereabouts I am in my drawing, so it's a little bit easier. I'm going to take this painting of Carly down. Got my drawing surface just popped up behind it. There's a lot of work still to do on that painting. There is a lot of adjustments that I'm still working on. The hands, you can see, are a little bit better than they were last week. I painted them over a year ago initially, and they were just too small and didn't quite look like they were holding anything, which meant I had to change the positioning of the arms and excuse me. So adapting and changing things in your drawing, keeping a flexibility until you're happy with it, is a part of the process. I always draw lightly and paint lightly to begin with, to allow the drawing a certain flexibility that I'm not being too definite about where things are to begin with, because normally when you start to create a picture, things move as your perception focuses. You get to see where things should be, so you might guess where the top of the head is, and as you start to develop the drawing, it slightly kind of morphs and changes a little bit. So to keep your drawing nice and loose, now as you can see, I've got my drawing surface up on the vertical there. If you can do this, draw on a vertical, because it keeps the drawing up in front of you so you can see it straight on. Often when you put your paper down on a horizontal, you're looking down at an angle and actually elongates your drawing, because normally we'll kind of get comfortable, we'll sit back and we'll draw with our arms outstretched, and we'll see our paper from a different point of view. When it's up in front of you, you're seeing it directly on, and certainly when you're drawing something with a reference, either you've got your photograph sat beside you, or if you draw it from life, your figure is sat beside you. It's easy to translate from your image to your drawing straight away, and literally you're not moving, your eyes are moving, and it's a bit like playing spot difference. As you make a mark, say of where the hair clip is on the top of her hair, as you make a mark as to where that is, you can flick your eyes backwards and forwards between the image and your paper surface and figure out, is that in the right place? And rather than say drawing the hair clip fully and rendering it and making it look amazing, if you just make a mark on your paper, you can make an adjustment to that mark as to where it needs to be. That's a lot easier than guessing where it is, drawing the rest of the head and going, oh, do you know what, it's a brilliant portrait, it looks great, but that hair clip is just too low. So it's a careful adjustment of your drawing. So to start off, you need to draw lightly. I wasn't too sure today whether to carry on painting, to do some charcoal. I thought I'm doing only pencil work for a while, so I'll go back to the pencils. If there is a medium that you'd like me to see, say, working, let me know. If there's something you're working on and you want to know how to develop it, how to draw it, or whatever it is in your little art world that you're working on, and you're having a frustration, let me know what it is. We can talk about it. If I don't have the answer, I'll go and try and find out about it, but it might be somebody else in the chat who does know and can share as well. Michael over on Facebook, you found your art mojo again. Great, good to hear. Back at it today, so watch while I draw. Brilliant. Okay, that's really good to hear. Hopefully you're doing the Prince drawing, is that right? We had a chat a few weeks ago that you started a new drawing of Prince. It's funny, we were listening to a load of music last night. The Foyer Incident is a local duo who play music. We've been playing live from the living room every other Friday and Saturday. Lovely couple, great fun, great crack to watch, playing loads of music. But we started watching sort of music videos after they stopped their broadcast over on YouTube, and so watching there's a video of I think it's Tom Petty. It was some sort of commemorative gig for George Harrison, and so they've got all these guys. It's Tom Petty, guys from ELO, I think George Harrison's son's on stage, and all these guys are playing this song. And then Prince walks on. he's been on the stage but quite quiet at the back, playing along the song all the way through, and then he just kind of walks forwards, and his performance is absolutely amazing. So if you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube. I'm sure it's there. I'm sure you'll find it. If you just put in Prince, Tom Petty and ELO, George Harrison, I'm sure you'll find it. It'll pop up. But yeah, well worth a watch. Just the his musicality and what he could do with the guitar. And you can say the rest of these really good musicians kind of look at him going, he's really good at this. And I think as artists as well, when you're looking at other artworks and you can see the qualities of a really good artist, that's not something to push you down, that's something to lift you up, to really inspire you to go, wow, that is brilliant, that's something to aim for. So whatever level you're at, you'll find people around you at a similar level, and you can be supportive as well to other people. There's plenty of art groups out there. When you see somebody who's amazing, you know, in your eyes you just go, those are the qualities I really like. Tell them. If they're a living artist, you know, if they're doing YouTube broadcasts, if they're doing live draws, or, you know, if they're on Instagram or Facebook, tell them what it is you like about their work. Don't be afraid to tell them and engage with them as well, because it's still an encouragement. That feedback is still like gold, you know. It's like an audience for what you're doing. A lot of artists do their own work for themselves to say something creatively, and when you're putting it out there and ease it, to find out what people actually think is really important. Now, there's a balance between you know, giving a critique and being analytical and finding faults and things like that, but you can give what they call constructive criticism, where if people are asking for it, they're going, what do you think? You can find all the elements that you like and elements that you're not too sure about, and you can ask the question rather than point at it and go, I think that's bad, or, you know, whatever. There's a balance to these things. So think about how a criticism comes across, whether the person isn't necessarily at the right stage to hear criticism. They need encouragement and support to develop their skills. Often harsh criticism at an early stage stops an awful lot of people. So I hear an awful lot from people in my classroom. Their last experience of it was from school. They enjoyed doing art, but they were told they were no good. This is back in the day, and it kind of deflated their bubble a little bit, and they kind of feel demoralised, and they feel, I'm no good, I'm not allowed to. Nobody's any good at drawing when they're you know, as you're a baby, you don't know how to paint, draw, sculpt. You know, everything is just, you know, a learning experience, and kids have an awful lot of fun with art, and there is no shame in just drawing for the sake of drawing and making the marks that they want to make. And there's something, as artists, we try to clamber back to being a little bit like that, where we take away the fear. But yeah, as I said, an awful lot of people kind of be demoralised, and they kind of stop themselves from allowing themselves to enjoy something, which I think is a terrible shame. It's not until later life where they go, do you know what, I'm fully grown, I'll draw if I want to draw, and I will go and learn if I want to learn. And they come back to the classroom. I say classroom, it's more of a kind of shared drawing experience in my classes, where people are doing their own thing, and I kind of bop around and I try and help them develop their drawing skills. So everybody's learning at a different rate, and that's natural. I'm quite a slow learner. It takes me a long time to kind of assimilate the information, mull it over in my head, try and experiment things out, and then reaffirm and relook at it. It's just because I do an awful lot of it, it may seem that I progress quicker, but I spend a long time doing it. Where I know that there are other artists, even from, say, my old college years and my foundation years, where there was guys on my foundation who could really draw. I mean, to a stage, if I had their capability now, I'd be quite happy. The thing is, they kind of just like flipped it out, and it was nothing to them, and I didn't see them progress much past that, because I kind of rested on the laurels a little bit. So I think when I find inspiration, I look at an artist. I don't just look at the work that they produce, I look at their work ethic. How do they work? How do they curate their artwork? You know, what is it they're doing? Why is it they're doing it that way? What can you see a progression in their work, that their work is consistently moving forward? That's an interesting artist. If you've got an artist and their work is stagnant and it's the same thing over and over and over again, and there's no development to it, it can be quite flat. The initial image is interesting, but then it only goes that far. So, I mean, one of the criticisms of some of the established known names, like say for example Cézanne, were to say bowl of fruit. It's never the same bowl of fruit. If you look at the artwork has developed over time, and he is really honing his understanding of light and form and textures and paint, and it might be the same fruit, but it's not the same painting. The painting's developed. It might be the same landscape, but a landscape is looked at in different times of day, different lighting conditions, different seasons, and there is a growth in his understanding of paint, and it makes his work interesting when you look at it. So I'm not just talking about the subject matters that are always the same. I'm talking about the process. If the process is just then a production, or just a production line, it can be good, but it doesn't take you that next step further. What is it about the artist? What is it they're trying to achieve? What is it they're going? So find inspiration. I think what I'm trying to say today is, if you can find the things that tick all of your boxes, make a mood board, make a scrapbook, print them off, stick them on your wall in your little art space, wherever you are, put them up around you. That if they're or buy their artwork, if they're the things that inspire you, they can really help you as you work in your drawings. I have a lot of art books, and often when I'm painting, I've got several of the art books open. Today I've got, if you can just see down here, that way, I have a book that's open on form drawing, and it's a simple rendering of a sphere. Now, that's a book called A Figure Drawing Atelier, and it's a sphere. What's a sphere got to do with a figure? Well, the thing is, when you're looking at a three-dimensional object like a figure, you've got to think about how light falls on it. And it's not to say that all figures are like a smooth ping pong ball, but you can understand how light travels from light to dark, and that understanding of building up something that feels or looks like it's solid. And that's it gives you a certain sense of realism that the thing exists, and you're creating the illusion by drawing. So I hope that makes sense. Just checking over on the screen to make sure I haven't lost anybody. We've got somebody else with us in Twitch, which is great. Hello. If you want to say hi, you're more than welcome. We're over on Facebook. I think it's just you and me, Michael. And I'm not sure how many people are watching over on YouTube. But as I say, if you are watching this and you're interested, you're more than welcome to fire in a question, talk to me about your artwork, whatever it is. Twitch has so much less delay. Scooper on Twitch. Yeah, it's really interesting to look at all these different formats and see how they work. All these different platforms have different people at them, and Arcat is for everybody, no matter what age you are, no matter what art skill your level. If you're a professional artist and you've got experience to share, you can come and share it. You can teach me. This is a two-way process. Sometimes I've had people in the classroom, and what they come up with as to the tools that they use and their experience and things like that is really valuable to me. So I don't get too conceited about I know everything, because I really don't. I'll be one of the first art teachers probably that you come across and go, I don't know everything. I have to learn myself. I have to go through that process. I'm exactly the same. It's just I've got a real enthusiasm for it. So enough of my chit chat banter. More than happy to get on with the drawing, because somebody just Harry Potter is 30 seconds from what I just counted. Okay, I'm not sure what 30 seconds is from. Might be for another chat room. That was over on YouTube. So yeah, guys, thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it. So you can share, subscribe, like the stream, whichever format you're on, and we'll get going with this anyway. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer to the page. I'm doing a little bit of a stretch there. Now you're looking at this at kind of an angle. So hopefully, I just want to see where my hand is on your screen. It's funny when you're watching on the oh, it was you. Cooper Scooper over on YouTube. I see. So you're watching on double format too. Thank you very much. So there is a massive delay in between these two streams. So we've got Twitch going live. This is where I'm running it from, and it goes over to YouTube and Facebook. So what comes out on Twitch is a little bit quicker than what comes out on the other two formats. So I'm going to get started. Enough of my chit chatter. I seem to have gone a bit kind of ghostly in the corner. Hope that's not too distracting, but I don't want to start fiddling with kind of levels and things right now, because otherwise I might lose a camera or something. Alex, hello, good afternoon. You're over on YouTube. Good to see you. Right, so I'm going to get on with the drawing. I quite like this picture of Andrea. It was when we first met. Fairly early on in our kind of relationship, and there's just I just captured it really lovely in a photograph. So I've had it in a picture up in my studio for a while. I'm going to put in the angles first and find the structure and basis of where this drawing is. You might not see the full thing. I've also got a cat in the studio. For those who don't know, Art Cat, come on. Just as I'm about to draw, I know it's almost like one of those teaser things where you go, I'm just about to draw. Oh, there's this. Art Cat, this is Inky. When we first started, over a year ago, Inky was a kitten. Oh, lovely pause. She's going to eat the microphone as well. Inky was a kitten. We'd only just got her, and now she's a fully fledged kind of psycho-adolescent cat, but she's in the studio today eating cables and things and trying to eat the microphone. So I'm going to have to put you down, I'm afraid. Is that okay? She looks like she wants to just eat the microphone, but I'm going to have to pop her down. Unless she'll sit on my lap for a little while, maybe. If you're good, you can stay there. You can't eat the pencils. Okay, sorry, slight distraction with the cat. So yeah, I'm going to put in the just structure of where Andrea is at the moment. I'm finding lines and shapes and forms and scale. So I'm quickly adjusting what I'm looking at on the picture, moving around the picture, and you'll see this kind of develop relatively quickly because I've been doing it for a while, that I'm not trying to guess where things are. I'm literally looking at how things relate to each other. So say for example this angle of her hair, where it stops, how far that away is from her fringe, how that fringe comes down at an angle. And I'm looking at the orientation of her head as well. She's looking down, and I'm also looking at her from a certain angle as well. So I'm not drawing her face on. So I've got to think about the proportions in my head. That proportions are not eyes are in the middle, top of the head is there, then the nose over. Because she's got her head tilted down and I'm looking from an angle, we're going to get different perspectives or different proportions that look on there. So you've got to think about those types of things. If you've got an understanding what something looks like in your head, a perceived idea, what are you actually looking at? Can be the same object but looks slightly different and it has different proportions. So the textbook thing about proportions are eyes go in the middle of the facial plane, and then between the eyes and the chin you get the nose, and between the nose and the chin you get the mouth, and people kind of plot these lines down. The problem is when you're doing it on a when you're doing it from a photograph or from life, very rarely ever people are kind of have that passport photograph, unless you are actually drawing from a passport photograph, but very rarely does that really show somebody's personality and makes a good interesting pictorial picture. So be careful that your understanding of proportions don't kind of trip you up a little bit. That have a look at the reference that you're working from, and really try to understand its proportions, the proportions of your reference rather than the proportions of what you think you know. Often that's the element that kind of trips people up the most, is people thinking they know what something looks like, and it's not until they actually start to draw something that it really starts to throw them out. Now I'm drawing straighter lines just to block in where the form is, and I'm not making too many guesses of what I think I know. So I'm looking at the angle of her face. It's very light on your screen. I know it might be quite difficult to see at the moment, so apologies for that. Well, as we get into the drawing, these things kind of darken up, but drawing lightly is really important. I'll do a little scan closer to that in a second. I'm looking at the line, say for the center of the top of her head where the pattern is a really good line, because it gives me the angle of her head, and then a pattern just there, and then it kind of breaks out. Yeah, I'm looking at the back of her head, comes down this way a little bit more. Because I'm drawing lightly, I can adjust these lines without them actually being or affecting the end result, the end drawing. So I can be quite loose and light, and I say my eyes at the minute are literally bopping between the image and the picture, purely and simply so I can get a good placement of things. This is called like sight sizing, where I'm not, I'm not plotting these out. I don't have it already pre-gridded out or anything like that. You can use grids if you want to. I just find them a little bit frustrating sometimes for myself, that when you grid out, sometimes where the grid lines are is right where an important bit of information is for the portrait, and you have to rub the grid away at a certain stage. And as you rub that grid away, you can rub out some vital information. I find it frustrating. An option for it is almost having like an acetate grid, and pull that over your artwork and see where things are on your grid. Move the acetate out of the way and then draw. But it's a bit of a faff moving things on and off your drawing all the time. But it is a solution to that. I've seen people project from a projector onto a canvas. That's okay if it's a good projector and you don't have there's a thing called, it's like a trapeze effect, where you project an image onto your screen or your canvas or your paper, and the image is kind of trapeze shape, and it's only because of the way the format of the picture is. It's not projecting straight directly onto something. There's a slight foreshortening of the image sometimes, and that can distort your overall image. I've seen a lot of people fall error to that, where they go, "Well, I projected it, it must be right," and that's what the fault is where they're using a tool. They believe the tool over what they're actually looking at. Always stand back and look at your artwork and go, is that right? Is that in the right place? If it's not, find out where it needs to move. Does it need to go up, down, left or right, and then move it, and you're better off doing that at this stage than you are kind of leaving it in your artwork, being a frustration and kind of tripping you up. I'm looking at this, how the back of this head started out here, moved to there, and I'm moving it back in. There's adjustments all the way through your drawing. I'm just drawing with a propeller pencil. It's a mechanical pencil. It's got quite hard lead in it. It's by Graph Gear. It's a an H lead I've got in there, so I'm drawing really lightly. People often think because it's H and it's hard that you've got to press hard with it. You don't. Draw lightly with an H pencil, because that's what the benefit of them is. They don't get pushed into the surface. You can literally skip them across the surface. These mechanical pens have a lovely weight to them, so they feel nice to use. But you can get sort of cheaper propelling pencils. This one's sold in a supermarket here in the UK called Tesco's, and it was £1, and they're quite good. They're not. I mean, they're made by Pentel. You know, they're okay. They're good, but they do feel a bit light. There are a lot of other brands you can buy out there. There are very, very expensive brands you can go up to, but find one that feels comfortable to you because you use it more. The range of leads that you use, get a range of leads, maybe a range of pencils as well, so you can keep a specific lead in each pencil. So different grades of pencil, you can get up to like 4B in these propelling pencils, which can go quite dark. But I will be using this just to put the basic drawing down. But you could use a normal pencil like a. What have I got there? This is a Caran d'Ache. I think it's about a B, is it? Let's have a look. There's an F. I might use that actually. I put these into pencil extenders just so I can see the whole image. So if I'm doing big marks, that it's easier to put that mark down without trying to hold on to the tip. Another point is if you're finding yourself navigating to this kind of what they call a tripod grip, that's often one of the biggest faults I find people have in their drawing. One, when they put it over the drawing surface, they can't see what they're drawing because their hand covers it. So to be able to see where your pencil is actually on your paper rather than trying to guess, so maybe using a force or whatever, move your hand further up and you can use it much more sculpturally, but it gives you a greater freedom of movement as well. It's easier to draw a line straight like that than it is to draw a line straight like that, whereas your natural breathing and movement will kind of give you a more wobbly line. It's a kind of building your confidence to make marks. So you can practice this, you know, get a sheet of paper, don't draw anything, but practice just doing straight lines or doing curves or doing arcs, and show how you can make marks. Mark making is probably the important thing to most art forms. That it's seldom about, you know, a small nuanced finished bit. That's normally towards the end. What's interesting is the structure of your drawing gives you confidence. So plotting things out to begin with helps you figure out where an awful lot of marks will be towards the end of your drawing and how you refine them and develop them. I won't try and confuse this thing at the minute. I'll stick to doing this light sketchy drawing with my propelling pencil. But yeah, again here you can see I'm holding this further back so I can see where my pencil is on the page. I'm not getting into details, I'm literally just placing where this head goes. So I've got an idea now about where this facial plane is. That her face actually, you know, when I look at it, I can see that's the side of the eye orbit of her right eye, and that eye comes down. But it's allowing me to see on this picture whereabouts her eyes are going to go. And again, they're going on an arc because the eyes are on a surface that's curved. So I'm not trying to guess where they are. I'm looking at spaces. So it's roughly where the nose goes. It's really light. I'm just putting little indicators where things are at the moment so I can move them around and tweak them as I need to. I want to get some of the body in as well because that's important. Often you see a great face and a very squished body in portraits, and it's often down that people are kind of rushing. Well, they deem not to be important, so often you get a brilliantly drawn face, but the shoulders and body that it's on are incredibly small, and it doesn't quite fit, and it takes away from picture of a really good face, because the rest of the body is not right. You kind of, people are very tuned to figures and to see what's not quite right with them, and you can do that yourself in, but being when you're analysing your own drawings. You know, if you're doing a drawing and you can't get the likeness right, describe to yourself what is not right. Are the eyes too big? Is the chin too low? You know, it's not about telling yourself off in this process. It's just identifying what areas need to move. If you're drawing it lightly to begin with, you can move them before you get sucked into rendering something which isn't right. Again, I'm looking at how things relate to each other. So I'm looking at the collar of that coat and how it comes up. It bends out that way a little bit before it gets to where her neck is. There is an indicator of she was wearing like a little collar ribbon that went around her neck, and then drifts down almost in line with the collar of that coat. So these other elements in your drawing will have a relationship to the things that you are drawing. Excuse me. So where you've got that ribbon following on an angle, it follows the same angle as the collar of her coat, and it comes up here, it goes sort of straight, it disappears underneath the hair, but it gives me an indication where this bit of hair is. Now, when it comes down to drawing hair, I draw shapes, I don't draw individual strands. You know, often people think, what does hair look like? It's lots of string, so I'll do lots of lines, and then seldom does the hair ever look real. You know, it looks like it's straw. When I draw hair, I draw shapes. I look at the form and look at how the shape of the hair flows over the shape and form of the head, and the angles that it takes as it develops its shape. Doing this bit here, and look at, again, just adjusting as I go. But listen, this is me talking about me drawing. This is art chat. It's not all about, you know, me doing demonstrations. It is about you and your artwork. So are you working on anything in the minute? I know Michael's talking about the drawing that he's just got back into doing. Sorry, Michael, you said about that video, so about Prince, because you're drawing a picture of Prince. While My Guitar Gently Sleeps. Yeah, you've seen it. Good. If you haven't seen that, go and check it out. It's on YouTube, and he blows them all away. And right at the very end, he kind of, after he finishes playing, he throws his guitar up, but you never see the guitar come back down again. It's kind of going like guitar is still floating around somewhere, orbiting the earth. Yeah, but brilliant. Well, worth checking out. If you've got any good art inspiration, if you found stuff online, podcasts, there's a gallery called Delphian Gallery in London. They've just put a call out for artists' work. And what's interesting is they've put that call out for free. Often when galleries put call outs for artwork and submissions and things like that, or art competitions, there's a fee that artists kind of have to now pay. It's like a culture of this kind of, if you want to be included, you have to kind of, your application has a fee attached to it. It could be sort of 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 quid, which is okay, kind of understand it, it's part of the process at the minute, but it's a very big frustration for a lot of artists, because that is a good chunk of money. If you're doing lots of, you know, you're putting yourself forward for a lot of different competitions and things, it can get very expensive very quickly, and there's a lot of competition out there. And the problem is, where there's a lot of competition out there, there's a lot of money generated, and the galleries, you know, have to run a business. I get that, but we are also businesses as artists as well, and we can't afford to just keep pumping out money. So what will happen is those who are affluent and have, you know, money from other resources, it's going to create a two-tiered system where you get some really, really good artists just not being able to afford to apply to different things, and that'll kind of suppress the art market a little bit. So what's really good to see. Definitely gallery. I'll put a link to this up in the show notes at the end. They've got a call out for artwork. Now you can go to them on Instagram and check them out there as well. And you can put the hashtag, I think it's Delphian Call for Art. If you go to my Instagram page, Leeboyd Artist, I put a little post up there and I put my submission in, and I tagged them, and go to their page and find the information. But on their website as well, not only are they doing a free submission, so there's like, I think something like 87,000 paintings have been submitted. That's amazing, because you get to see some amazing pieces of work. If you're looking for sources of inspiration, that's a great thing to look at, because as you can kind of scroll through them, you can kind of go, well, I know that I'm better than that. I know that that's interesting, but I don't like the way it's been done. And there's lots of different, flavors of art there to dip in and look at. If you find something that's interesting to you, that's generally an artist working by themselves somewhere in the world. You can click on their Instagram page, you can follow up what they're doing, and it can be a real valuable resource. What's also interesting on their website is that they're doing art podcasts, and they're doing it with artists and curators, and they're having some really interesting conversations. And for a gallery to be doing that, it's really important, because they're showing not just what they are like themselves, but what they're doing is curating artists. They're not just it's not just about the retail aspect of a gallery, putting it on the wall and selling it. They do have obviously commercial sales. Part of this call out is they're doing it from print, so you can submit your artwork, they're going to print it off, they're going to put it in an exhibition, and they will make sales from that. And it's a 50-50 split, which is kind of par for the course at the minute. Most galleries have a 50-50 split, but you're not actually doing anything. They're printing it, you're sending them the image. If you get into the show, you're sending them the image, they're doing the print, and they'll be taking care of the commercial retail side of actually selling it and producing it and sending it to the customer. But there's also a chance to get a fully funded exhibition. Now for an artist, that's really difficult to get a fully funded exhibition of your own work, solely your own work. So if you know of any artists out there who might be interested, tell them about it, share the information out there. One of the things I've always been interested in is sharing the information about opportunities, because I've always felt that if the art world supports one another, we'll get stronger. As we get stronger, we'll get better. And if we get better and we break down some of these barriers about what people think art is or should be, a lot of people got fear over art, and they think, oh, I don't know anything about art, therefore I won't integrate with it. I won't go to a gallery, I won't look at artwork, because I think they are going to be shown up as not knowing enough, and that their valued opinion isn't valued. And I want to open it out that the general public, as much as possible, needs to be brought into the art world, because there's been this kind of hierarchical aspect to the art world a little bit, where it hasn't been as accessible as it should be, because art is for everybody, and everybody's walls at home should be filled with art and culture from wherever they're from, and it should be, great point, art is supposed to be fun. Cooper Scooper put that up over on Twitch. Absolutely, art should be fun and enjoyable and inspiring and informative. There's so much to it, and we're kind of suppressing that if we get too elitist with our artwork. So as artists, we need to communicate better. We need to share our artwork out there. That's why I like things like social media for that aspect, where you can put it up on Instagram and you can find people out all over the world. I've made sales with my artwork from putting it on different platforms, from other cultures and other places and other countries that I haven't been to. And I think if you can make that connection, great. Everybody will buy artwork for a different reason, for themselves. Dumb art memes is often the most fun. I think you're right, there's a lot of creativity in memes. That was Cooper Scooper over on Twitch. Do you know how creativity is seen now is through a lot of images, say through through their phone, through looking at, scrolling through their social feeds and things like that. And sometimes you see a meme and it really kind of captures you. It's graphically interesting, it's clever, it's funny, it's witty, and I think there's a lot to say about that style of creativity that is a part of our culture now as well. Some people don't like it, but I think that if it's done well, it's done well, full stop. Artwork done well is good, and that is subjective. What I think is good and what you might think is good, it might be two different things, but it's all out there for everybody to get. So I do feel that we should be kicking open the doors a little bit artistically to a wider public, so you can enjoy art. It's for everybody. A lot of people are scared to go, I don't know enough about art, I won't have anything. A number of houses that I've sort of been in and seen, and sort of we go for walks around where we live, and sort of especially sort of at kind of the dark nights and stuff, and people got the curtains on when you're walking past houses and stuff like that, and everybody does glance in as you're walking past different houses and stuff, and a number of people don't have any artwork, nothing on their walls, bare. And I was thinking, God, in lockdown, lockdown must be really boring in the house because they're staring at bare walls. Go and get some art. I don't care if you have to go down to, I don't know, a cheap charity shop and find a bit of artwork that you like. Get that, stick that on your wall. Get used to putting your artwork out there. Get used to buying art. Encourage people to buy art. Encourage people to talk about art. Because you'll generally find, people go, oh, I don't like this modern stuff. Well, you tell me what is modern, because I've seen some very traditionally concept pieces of work who are done by modern artists who are producing artwork now. So there will always be a flavour of artwork out there for everybody. It's just that they don't know where to go and find it or see it or how to come across it. So yeah, I always think if we can share good examples of good practice like the Delphing area and how they're running some of their exhibitions and running their websites and things and running their gallery, we should share that out, because that should become the norm. I feel it should become the norm anyway. But that's me on my soapbox. You might think something completely different. It's Alex over on YouTube. I hope you're okay still. I think you said good morning, and from that point I haven't seen you type anything else, so hopefully you're still there, or your internet hasn't dropped out. Got over on Facebook, so check. I think Michael, you're still with us. That's good. But yeah, we'll keep this going. So yeah, as I was saying about the different streams, Twitch is quite an interesting one. It's quite a young platform, a lot of gamers, but there's a lot of other elements to the stream as well. There are just chatting rooms. There's people chatting about all different types of stuff. There's music rooms with guys actually playing live music on there. There's art rooms with lots of different art genres going on. There's people sculpting, there's people painting, drawing, digital art things, tattooing, body painting, all these little tiny kind of bunches of creativity going on. So I know art is alive and very vibrant all over the planet right now. It's very, very popular. So when I hear, oh, art, what is it good for? I go, well, here, have a look. We're not alone. Often because we draw or paint or sculpt in isolation, we think, oh, nobody's interested. But that's not true. Get used to showing your artwork. It can be a bit scary to begin with, because you're literally putting what you think down on paper for people to view and judge. And it can be a bit overpowering, to say the least. How people are going to view you. It's unnerving, I should say. But there's also a lot of camaraderie in doing, say, group shows as well. So calls for artwork, they say, from things like the Royal Ulster Academies. They put out a public show once a year where you can submit your artwork. Look for those calls for work. They cost normally about £15 a picture to submit. I don't mind paying that money for that RUA show because it supports it. It's not necessarily trying to run it a commercial experience. It is commercial still. People do buy work, and the money goes pumped back into supporting the Royal Academy or the Royal Academy or the Hibernian show. There's one in Scotland and there's one in Ireland. There's one in Northern Ireland, the RUA, and the Royal Academy show in England, where it's got an open submission. Now, the Royal Academy show every year, but there's an open submission part where artists from outside of the Academy get to show their artwork. So it doesn't matter whether you're a dabbler, a professional, a hobbyist, a semi-professional, whatever level you're at. You can create a piece of artwork and submit it to the show, and it can be chosen and put beside a very well-renowned painter of our modern time. And when I go around and see these shows, rather than complain that I didn't get in, because it is subjective, but for these things, you put your artwork in, sometimes it gets in, sometimes it doesn't. I've been in a couple of times, but I don't get in every time. That's okay if you accept that you might not get in, because the acceptance of artwork is quite small in comparison to the number of submissions. But when I walk around there, I'm often inspired by more of the artwork done by the general public than I am by the academicians. Now, the academicians' works are great, they're interesting, but often the most interesting aspect of the show is artwork that completely comes out of left field and is somebody you've never heard of, and you can suddenly see their work and go, oh my god, this is amazing. Galleries go to it for that pure reason, where they can pick up a new talent. People go to the exhibition to buy artwork because they can buy a fantastic piece of artwork by somebody who isn't well known, therefore their prices aren't sky high, and they can pick the artwork that they love. They're not necessarily doing it for an investment reason, they're doing it because they go, oh my god, I love artwork, I want artwork, I love that person's artwork, but they're an established artist and they cost a fortune, I just don't have that money. But there's somebody who's painting to similar quality and it's amazing and he's unknown and he's a lot less expensive and I can afford that, and they'll buy it. They're buying the artwork that they love. So if you can get out to these different genres, or these different shows, do it. You know, go see physical artwork when we can, obviously, because of lockdown, nobody can get out at the minute. But when you can do it, do see the artwork up for life. It's a little bit better than flicking through a screen when you actually stood in front of it. Scale is actually a big thing. When you look at an artwork on your phone, you've got no idea how big it is. It could be metre square, or it could be 10 centimetres square, and you've got no real indication of scale. You can't get up close to it, you can't see what it looks like in a different light. You know, to see something physicality is a lot different from seeing it on screen or in printing books. There's a lot of good reference books that I've got of like known artists like Rembrandt and Velasquez and all a whole manner of different artists, but they're not nowhere near as good as the real thing. You have to go and see the real thing if you can get to it. Oh, Michael, you've switched over from Facebook to YouTube. Good switch. So yeah, he's disappeared. I can see there's one number down on Facebook. So yeah, this is, as I say, a bit of an experiment this morning. I tried it earlier on this week, and one of the things I'd done as well is I'd left the volume up on all of the channels, and they were all streaming through my headset. So I had like 4 different aspects of my own voice coming through my own headset at the same time. One from the broadcast itself, then to Twitch, then to YouTube, then to Facebook, and all 4 sounds were coming through my head, and I'd kind of turn them down to a point where nobody else can hear them, and I kind of moved the headset off my ears a little bit, and the problem is the microphone was picking it up, so it was then broadcasting it, and that broadcast was then firing out 4 different versions. So each broadcast had 4 different versions of my voice, and then that was coming back. It was like this horrible loop, which is getting progressively even worse. I learned how to sort that out this week. So again, this is, even though I've been doing it for nearly a year, I can't believe it's nearly a year, there is so much that I'm still learning and picking up on doing these broadcasts. So thank you for being here and sticking with it. I really appreciate it, because I know it can be, I'm not a professional broadcaster, you know, this isn't TV quality stuff. I should get back to my drawing. I do. Well, this is called art chat. It's not necessarily just me doing art. The chat part is important to me, anyway. Where are we going there? I just saw something pop up on the screen. I missed it as I turned my head, so it's either somebody's just followed or liked the stream, so thank you for that. Appreciate it. Again, I was looking through how people multi-stream and things. I use a service called Streamlabs, and there's a way of getting online and pumping the information out there, and they had this thing where you have to subscribe to it and pay a little bit of money, but it then can multi-platform share it all, which is amazing. Not all platforms allow you to do that. Michael, you're asking over on YouTube, so the RUA, do you submit the actual frame drawing or a photograph of it? Well, you can actually submit online. The changes about a few years ago where rather than having to send in your artwork, there is a selection process. So you can submit online a good image of your artwork, and when you're taking photographs of your artwork, try and make it just the artwork. You don't want the background wall or somebody's fingers holding on to it, or it being a little bit skewed in the picture frame. Just of the artwork itself. You submit that digitally, they review it, they make a selection process, and there's a dropping off day. Now the dropping off day can be quite fun. You're given a time slot. They normally do it alphabetically, so they'll go right, A's to C's, 9 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock it's D, E and F's, all the surnames. So you can, as you go down, you can sort of see a queue of people like going in, dropping off their artwork, and everybody's that little bit, oh, what have you got? If yours any good, or what's mine like? At this stage, they've selected what they'd like to see. You submit it, they review it with a panel of judges, and I'll show you. I'll tell you what how kind of crazy this is. There was a program about it on the Royal Academy in the UK, in England, and they had the academicians are a panel of judges, and as each artwork is brought past, it's literally carried by somebody in front of the judges like this, and the judges sitting back and they're giving it a mark. 1, 0. 0 means they don't like it. 1 means they do. Well, if that piece of artwork gets, say, a number of 1s, it's in. If it doesn't get in. So in a way, it's a bit like Instagram, where you're kind of scrolling through artwork, but they're just doing it in a physical sense. The artwork is scrolling past them. They make a selection. If they've got too many artworks, they'll do a further selection and walk around and discuss and point out what they did and didn't like about certain artworks, so they'll review it that way. And then they'll have a good idea about size and scale of artworks and where they're going to fit and how they fit together. So they might have, say for example, a portrait room, they might have an abstract expressionist room, a print room, so they'll put genres together, or they'll put subject matter together. So might have an animal room where any artwork that has any reference to do with an animal will be curated to put together, and they give different people rooms to curate themselves as a little show. Excuse me. They do a thing called gallery hang, which they just cover the wall full of art. So when you walk in, it's like, wow, where do you start looking? It's like a sweetie shop for art, and you can finally find a little golden nugget tucked away in the corner somewhere. It always impresses me how sometimes the best artwork is not in the most prominent place, and that you have to kind of go around and really hunt through it and search out what is interesting. Anywho, I got all this drawing. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, as I think you're losing some of the detail that I'm starting to work on. Let's see, wait for my screens to catch up. Hopefully. There we are. Camera's having a little bit of a trouble focusing on it. As soon as my hand's there, that's better. Good. I'm going to start to plot in. You can still see this very loose, layered effect of how marks are starting to build up. Sometimes in the drawings, these are interesting elements to a drawing about how they've been left in. And they actually add to a drawing. How you think or curate your artwork, you know, what is it you'd like to have? You can be as refined and as photographic as you'd like. You can have it's so, you know, rendered that you don't see any brush strokes, you don't see any pencil marks, and it's just the image that you're left with. I mean, that's technically achievable and amazing to look at. But there are elements in artwork which are not about how close it looks like a photograph. It's more than that. It's about the quality of the mark making and the painting, and those things can add an extra flavour or story to the artwork, which is interesting. And I'd pay close attention to some of those things as well. To sometimes leaving a little bit of the process in your drawing can actually inform the qualities of your subject as well. Think about it this way: if you're looking at, say, Turner, right? Turner painted these amazing skies, rolling seas, you know, thunderous clouds, and all the rest of it. When you look at his paintings, his marks have got that element to it. The painting is also a language where he can put the mark making down to make a sky look thunderous. Often when you describe verbally what something looks like, it gives you the indication about how you should be using your medium. So when you look and say at the surface quality of a brick and you say it's all scratchy, then you might use your graphite in a more scratchy type of way and give yourself a texture of a brick. If you're looking at hair that kind of flows and it's almost like water as it moves over the surface of the form of the body, then it can indicate that you might need to flow your graphite on there. So how would you do that? You might use a brush. You might use a cone wheel pad to dip it into some charcoal or some graphite and smooth it onto the surface, and then push back through with your rubber to get the kind of lights to start to appear. So describing it gets you to experiment with your mediums. Use those two processes. If you're just looking at, oh, that is dark, I must get a dark pencil and put dark down here. Think about why is that dark? What's the quality of it? Is it grainy? Is it slick? Is it like oil black? Is it grainy black? You know, if it's slick and oily, maybe you need to kind of put down a certain process. If it's grainy, maybe use a different process. You still make it black, you still make it as dark as you can, but the two different qualities of textures that you put down can give you a different feeling for your artwork. And it's subliminal. It's an unspoken language. When somebody looks at it, they know immediately that there's a quality to it. So this particular photograph has a graininess to it. It's almost like a timeless quality. It's a snapshot in time, but it's got a graininess to it that I quite like, and something I want to kind of keep hold of in the picture. So think about the quality of the thing that you're looking at. You know, and different elements within it might have different qualities. So hair has a different quality to, say, the quality of that jacket, or the sleekness of this ribbon. Now the ribbon's quite dark. It goes dark in lots of areas, but it's a very smooth black. It's not hardly any grain to it, but there's a bit of a sheen halfway through, and that juxtaposed with the surface of her neck and the chest and the light falling from that and a little shadow that's created. All of these kind of little elements I'm starting to map in. I'm mapping in shapes of negative space, so I'm looking at how that ribbon goes around her neck. Doesn't just go around in a loop. There's a knot here. As that comes down, it creates that negative shape here. It's like a V shape, and I want to get that V shape as close as I can to the V shape I can look at here. So, and then as it comes up a little bit, just where the collar comes over this lapel, it changes its shape a little bit, and then it opens back out this way, and I get this kind of shape appearing. And I want to make sure this kind of shape that I've got is similar to this shape that I've got over here on the drawing. So I'm not drawing things, I can draw the shapes of things and end up drawing the ribbon on her neck. I'm not drawing the ribbon on her neck, I'm drawing the shape in between it, and it's giving me the contour where these things are. Again, drawing them lightly means I'm not stuck. If I need to kind of shift or move them around because of scale, I can do that still. I put a quick line here because it gave me an element of hair that sat over her face. This is the other side of it. It comes up and joins to there. You know, we're looking at folds and flowing of hair and things like that, and shapes. They're quite abstract shapes to draw, but the funny thing about them is if you try and cheat them and just put any old shape of hair in there or any old fold of material, they never look right. You know, it always kind of trips up your form. So think about how hair, material, even how, you know, leaves on a tree, textures and things that cover up forms, how they actually fit the form. If you don't get these things right, it'll kind of throw out your pictures. It'll look odd and you won't know exactly why. And that's the same for a viewer. When they're looking at the work, they'll go, yeah, it's a good face, but you know, it's all in proportion and everything like that, but the forms don't look right for some reason. And it's often things like either shadow shapes as they flow around the face, don't follow the contours of the face, they're doing their little thing. So I'm just drawing in a shadow shape here. You see that? And this shadow shape is cast from this bit of hair which flows over this part of the brow, and it creates like that kind of triangle shape, and it's quite dark in this part here, and so this part is in shadow. I'm going to lightly shade it for you, so hopefully that'll stand out a little bit better. And as it comes down, it gets lighter here, and as it goes back over and around, it goes up down the side of the head, or side of the eye, where the eye is there, and then back over the cheekbone. As it goes over the cheekbones, it curls back around to flow around the shape of the face. If I didn't get this curve right, or that shadow shape right, and put the curve in slightly differently, it will change the shape of her jawline, a cheekbone, sorry. If it changes the shape of a cheekbone, it won't look like a face, even though I've got the eyes right, in the right place, and the nose in the right place, the mouth in the right place, and it has the qualities of her proportions. If I don't get the form shadow right, how that shape follows the form of her face, and how that then cuts around and then comes back up, and I can draw the shape and flow and form of her shadows without necessarily drawing anything in particular of her features. So I'm drawing the shadow shape here. Gives me the cheekbone, the fold next to her right hand side of her cheek. It's giving me the indication of where her nose is by going around that nostril underneath the nose here, and it comes back up here, to kind of meet this line. It doesn't meet it horizontally, it's a slight angle to it. It's about there, and then it comes back out this way, and it almost reaches the very edge of her cheek when it cuts back, and almost looks like an arrowhead. And that cuts straight across there. That's giving me an indication of where top of the lip is. I'm again drawing the shadow shapes rather than drawing features. So I'm drawing that shadow, and the shadow that goes underneath and around this part here. Now I can see how this shadow kind of breaks in and goes across, so I've drawn that quite lightly because there isn't a dark line which goes around across all shadows. When you look at form, there's a gradual gradient to shadows, how they go from light to dark. That's why I was showing you that picture earlier on of the sphere in the book. We see if we can zoom back to that book. Just there. You see? There is no lines in between where that ball is, but when you look to the other side of the page here, it indicates them to begin with, and then as you go through the rendering process, that line disappears and it's much softer. So shadow shapes and lines are important. They're important to kind of place to begin with, so you know where they are, but when you start to render the physicality of the image, about how things are light and dark, and you get harsh shadow edges and soft shadow edges. Try saying that a lot. But how light goes over a surface. So here it's quite dark and sharp, but as it comes out from there and starts to disappear into the face, as it hits light, it gets lighter. I'm looking at this area now, and I can start to map in shadow shapes of her eye orbit. That indicates things like Andrew's got great eyebrows. Where those eyebrows actually start and stop in relationship to some of the hair that I've already got in, how far away this mark is away from this bit, the angle of that eyebrow going up, the angle of that eyebrow coming across and stopping about there, the angle coming in for an eye there, how that then goes. It's funny because people often draw almond shapes for eyes, and they very seldom are almond shapes. When you look at her eye, what we actually draw are quite straight lines. I'm looking at where the eyebrows stop there, how far away this part of her eye is from it, and I can then gauge, have I got this too far out or too far in. Now underneath that we've got a lot of space for the eyelashes as well. I'm just putting in straight lines. And this is just to map out or find location for these things. For this shadow going across the bridge of a nose, where that top part of the bridge of a nose is almost in line with that line, so I can then put that little mark there. So you can put, as you build marks up, they'll indicate where other marks are going to be. As I start to map this shadow shape, map this side of a head, map out where this eye orbit is, map out where this eyebrow was, coming down, mapping out the shape and lines of where this eye is, it then indicates, as I go across the drawing, where this bridge of the nose is, because it's in line with this line. And as I carry across that, where else do I hit? And I hit the return part of where her nose comes down. Comes down this way, and there's a slight adjustment I need to make to where this shadow line was for her nose. Remember I put that in earlier on. So again, this is the shadow tip of her nose. I can then look at that and size and scale of her face and go, okay, this needs to move up a little bit. This moves up a little bit, this needs to move up a little bit. Which means this comes back this way a little bit more. So again, I'm looking at scale. If this is the size of her eye, this is the size of her nose, then it'll push maybe her chin down a little bit, so her chin might change a little bit. If her chin changes a little bit, it might push all the information I put here down a little bit. And you've got to accept that moving things around is part of the process. Also means you didn't put them in the right place to begin with, so don't blame yourself if things aren't right to begin with. Allow yourself to develop the work that way. Yeah, ask me some questions if you're still around. What else is it you're thinking about? What are the things that bug you about your work when you work and you're drawing or you're sketching? What is it that frustrates you? I'm kind of going off a lot of personal experience about how I've developed something. Andy Pandy 48, you're here on Twitch, wherever it is. I know you wrote that a little bit earlier, so I could mix up with Cooper Scooper over on Twitch. Yeah, so you can see how any information that you have regarding your artwork, little tips, you might be able to help somebody else as well. You might be able to help me. There's lots of things that I've come across. I talk about this an awful lot, but one of the best drawing tools I have is actually an eraser, and it's made by a company called Mono Zero. This isn't a plug, I'm not sponsored that way, but this little tool came from a student in one of my classes, Michael, and it was on a Monday class, and he started using this one day in the classroom. What is that? It was just a pencil eraser. I saw it online and I thought I'd give it a go, and it's quite fun to use, and I went, that is fun to use, I like it a lot. And I've noticed an awful lot of artists since then have been using them, not because of Michael, but because they must have brought them out and I hadn't seen it before. And it's a go-to tool now. So picking information up from, classically students is an important aspect of doing this as well. So yeah, sharing information, sharing any good quality resources, any good places to buy art materials from. Here in Northern Ireland we've got a place called Art and Home. In Hollywood we've also got a place called the Milliken Brothers. There's a guy called Dan Ferguson on Instagram, really good artist, check him out. He's done sort of this like live broadcasting on Instagram, just chats to people about his artwork and his process and materials and things. And he was talking about Milliken Brothers, and I've known of them for quite a while. They're based in a place called Grey Abbey, and if you didn't know where they were, you would never use them. because you couldn't find them. But a lot of well-renowned artists use them because they produce really good quality paint surfaces, canvases, things like that. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can check them out. They are a lot more expensive than just buying them off the rack, but the quality of them is amazing. On Home, are still available online. If you're buying it from the UK, you can go onto places like Cass Art or Jackson's Art, and you can, they're a good place to buy good quality materials. People in Northern Ireland have got this thing with Brexit, so there's a bit of a change with how things are actually getting into the country. So there's a bit of delay in lots of different things there. Over on YouTube, we've got somebody saying something there. Instagram, great for picking up tips. Yeah, going to try acetone to spray onto charcoal for a nice effect. Yes, you can use acetone. You can use water as well. When you're using acetone, make sure you've got a good ventilated space. There's a wonderful quality to it. Oh, what's the guy's name? It's gone out of my head. It'll come to me in a second. He uses an awful lot of charcoal drawings, and he uses different effects on the textures in his background, and he builds them into the portraits, and they look amazing. But you're using different sprays, and how you apply it can give you different effects as well. It's going to really bug me out. I can't remember his name. You probably know it already. Looking out for different qualities of charcoal application. I've seen people use little pouches that are filled with charcoal powder, and they flick the pouch onto, it's like a little linen pouch, or that they use, and they flick the page with the pouch, and it kind of makes little puff marks of charcoal that are kind of then lightly adhere to the surface. When you're spraying spraying fixative or any additive to the surface, be careful how you spray it on. I've seen people kind of spray it on and it just blows the drawing off the page. Often lay it flat, spray it up into the air, and let it fall onto your, let gravity do the work for you, let it fall lightly onto the surface, and you get a really good, interesting coverage. If you're looking to create a texture like that, it might be interesting to experiment with it. You know, spray it on close and watch it spray the charcoal and see what the acetone or sometimes water, what that will actually do as well. So play around with those things. Yeah, good tip. Thank you for that, Michael. Over on Twitch, we've got 4 people watching us. So yeah, if you've joined on wherever you are, Twitch, Facebook or YouTube, say hello, tell me who you are, tell me what you're doing. Good to work on. Hopefully this camera will stop bouncing around a little bit on that face. I mean, as soon as you put something into screenshot, it kind of focuses on that, and then you don't get that kind of like, I can't focus because there's not enough light. Let's get this other eye in so I can get some orientation in. There's a little bit of a return to this bridge of the eye here, a bridge of the nose, sorry, which goes into the eye orbit of this other eye, and then the angle from that kind of flows up along that line, and it gives you a great angle for the eyebrow coming back in. Now it can be tempting to draw that style of eyebrow on that side of her face, but we can't actually see it. When you look at the picture, the eyebrow goes across and over the bridge of her eyebrow ridge here, which is kind of more of a curved surface. And as it cuts back in and comes down, we get the idea about where this eye is from that. It then comes out in a straightish line here. We get a little bit of an angle of where eyelashes are. These are, I can honestly say, they're her own eyelashes. There are no added bits to these. She doesn't wear false eyelashes. This corner of the eye and how close it is to the bridge of this nose, I've got to take it back up there. It's also falling on an angle from the other eye. It falls on an angle this way. So that's where that bridge is. So under part of the right comes out this way and down that way and back up across this way and then back up this way. So when I look at this now, you see this kind of weird 50p shape that's kind of appeared in the drawing. Don't know if you can see that. I'll try and turn more light onto the drawing surface for you. Hopefully that'll work. Where are we? Yeah, it's a little bit better. She's starting to look a bit kind of skeletal at the moment. So that make sure I get to see all the different formats there. There, good. Sorry about that. It's just so I can see each of the chat screens. Yeah, it's got like this weird 50p. This is a shadow shape. It's appeared. I know that bit of the shadow though isn't there. So I can take my rubber and I can get rid of it. If you've got a mark that's in the wrong place and doesn't look quite right and is bugging you, rub it out. You do hear sometimes from classrooms where, especially art teachers as well, like art teachers, would go, "Oh, leave the marks in because they add depth." That's their flavour of their perception and what they like in art coming through them, which is fine. You can learn from other artists and learn from them the qualities of their artwork because you like their artwork and that's what you want to build into your artwork. That's a good thing to do, but you're only hearing a certain perspective of what flavours of artwork that they like coming through, of how you should draw. I always say, look, if it's something that you like in your drawing, leave it there. If it's something you don't like in your drawing, take it out. So using a rubber isn't necessarily a bad thing. Often as you get into your art career or art education, if you're going into university and college and stuff, they'll go through a drawing phase of demonstrations and teaching you how to draw, and they'll tell you to leave every mark in because it adds richness to the drawing, adds, some spontaneity to it, some life to it. That's fine to a certain point. But if you've got a mark which is totally not in the right place and completely distracting, take it out. Because if it's still there in your finished portrait, it's a mark that's just looking wrong, it will detract from your portrait. So these are always guides in these classrooms. They're not dictatorial traits of how you should and shouldn't draw. That makes sense. I think too many people get too dogmatic about how you should draw and how you shouldn't draw. These are just tips to get an image of something that can please you, and you can change it around as much as you want. You can put as many straight lines in as you want. You can make it as rendered as you want, photographic as you want, abstract. If you have a look at the nature of the drawing at the moment, it's quite an abstracted shape. It's not trying to be perfect. I'm allowing the drawing to develop. It's quite angular. There's lots of lines and structures in here which will disappear into the drawing as you start to render it more and more. I want a certain realism because it's a picture of Andrea that I want to try and create of her. So I want the likeness to be there, but also I want it to feel quite solid, like it's a physical thing on the paper. So there's certain elements that I need to do to my drawing, but if I wanted to create an abstraction of Andrea, I could take some of these marks and play around with them, the layering effect of colours in different blocks, how shapes move, how hair flows. I could take this line and take it right through the portrait to kind of pull you into the flow of hair. This portrait might become about her hair rather than if I'm doing an abstracted version of it, not necessarily where her eyelashes are. Do you know what I mean? I'm just looking at that zip and how that comes down this way and then kicks back out this way a little bit, just to give you the arc of the curve of the zip line that comes around, and then it cuts back this way. So you get this nice kind of, again, this has been made out of straight lines, this curve. I just realised you can't see it because I have it focused on the head. Let's zoom it out a little bit. Whoop, other way. There we are. So I just wait for my screens to catch up. On all three formats. There we go. So YouTube's incredibly slow. It's about 30 seconds behind every other format. So there, yeah, you get to see a little bit more. What I was doing there was drawing these straight lines, the curve and flow of that lapel, because it gives you an idea of body shape. It's also let me know that where I had this line up here, remember this shape I was drawing? It's accurate enough, but it's actually further down. So as I draw that in, I can see that shape in context with the scale of this now. That where I had it before wasn't quite big enough. So see that curve and that straight line is actually this curve and that straight line. It needed to be a little bit bigger than I had it. What's also well aware of is that where I had this line coming down here, it's actually over here. And it goes back up that way. So this point is in the right place. It does meet up. But it means that this line is wrong. So remember that shape that we had is now bigger and over to the right. You see that? So as you're drawing a drawing, if you get too focused in on one little area and you draw that perfectly, when you stand back and look at it, what you might find is it's out of scale with everything else. So you've got to make it the same scale, even if it's just an abstracted shape. It actually gives me the line and shape and flow of this ribbon from her neck, which is an important aspect, because as you go down and it flows into the material, it flows into the hair, you know, everything has a connection. So it's very easy to go, it doesn't matter because it's just a ribbon, who's going to know? If it doesn't flow right, it won't look right. Ethan's my son over in Holland. He's studying over there. You're on Twitch, you just woke up. I know you're an hour behind, but come on, it's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But I know you're a bit of a night owl. You've been kind of probably working all the way through the night. It's lockdown, everybody's got different sleeping patterns at the minute. So yeah, not to worry. We'll try and get out in the daylight, get some vitamin D. That's me giving my parental advice. Like, if you're not going to do it, you're not going to do it, because you're in Holland. How will I ever know? So yeah, go over on Twitch. So yeah, it's great to see all 3 formats working, even though YouTube's a bit delayed. So it's about half an hour, about 30 seconds behind the other 2 streams. I suppose it's good if I make a mistake, a catastrophic mistake, I could always pause the stream before it ever reached YouTube. So there's a benefit for having a small delay there, I guess. I started to realise I kind of stopped the colour. This colour is quite interesting because it gives me a little bit of an indication as to where positioning of chin is, but I want to kind of put a little bit more placement of this shadow. Now I'm doing the underside of a nose at the minute, and when I get down to the top lip, remember this shadow line I had before? There's a highlight just above her lip, but this line of her mouth kind of follows that line of that shadow to a point, which is the corner of her mouth, and then from there is a lovely angled line coming down this way, which is actually the line direction of that whole entire top lip. It hits a point there, and then it goes back up this way. And this one stops there. So very simply, it's given me the structure of where the top lip is, without necessarily doing the Betty Boo lips, which I see an awful lot of people almost do, like a lip liner around the mouth, and it doesn't exist in the mouth when you start to finish it off. When I start, this is just the shape, the shadow shape of that top lip, not lip liner and a line around her mouth. As I start to blend this in, this line will disappear into the blending and the shadow. What I'm looking for is structures to help me figure out where things are, and it's making me readjust this whole area. It's got a bit muddy with lots of pencil scratches and marks, so I'm going to take all of them out just so I can see where the edge of her face actually goes. This line follows right the way through to where the bottom lip is, so I know that I'm quite happy with this angle. There is the bottom lip, which starts not as you would think in the corner of the mouth, but actually starts a little bit further away, almost in line with the apex of that what they call the philtrum, this dip underneath the nose here. So which is the apex of that philtrum bit on the left hand side, because this is a shallow curve. It's not a V, you know. On this particular portrait, it's a very, very shallow curve. And it's a shallow arc into the other part of that lip here. As it comes around to this point of the curve, go straight down. I get the beginning part of the bottom lip, and it does come straight down. Well, it's a slight angle. Comes down that way, and then it comes back this way, and it does follow that angle and then changes as it hits the bottom and then comes back up. Now the thing is, it doesn't go straight to that corner. It often fades out about that far away from the corner of the mouth. There's a slight ghost image there at the bottom lip. Underneath that, we have a shadow, and the shadow is the top part of the chin, this bit of her chin, and it is a horizontal line. I'm just going to leave that as a horizontal line. What I'm starting to see is the space of this line, this edge of her face, and how that comes up before it changes its almost changing its direction in line with this shadow line of her chin. This is a whole shadow underneath the bottom lip. It changes direction to come back this way, and there's a slight curve to it to take you to the under part of her chin here. Now this is the centre of her chin, because you've got to think that it's curved. Before it comes around. But there's a shadow shape here as well, so if I continue that line right across slightly, and then it goes up this way actually, and then down, you can start to see how this shadow gives you an indication from the underside of her chin here, and then comes up the side of her face this way. How that then translates into the shadow. So you can start to build up forms out of lines, but you can lightly shade them in to give them their blocky nature. And now the line then comes back down this way for the hair. You can do this whole shadow. And what I'd say, when you're kind of blocking in your shadows, don't rush it, don't scribble all over the place, the shadow. Do it so the shadow becomes a whole block colour. So I tend to kind of lightly do it to begin with and slowly pull back on the pencil, and I don't want any scratchy lines, so I try and keep the pencil almost like paintbrush, where it kind of flows and fills in the whole surface with a tone. So the pencil lines start to disappear and you're just left with a solid light grey, if you like. So I'm really lightly putting in these shadows. That shadow will become a lot darker. There will be tone all over her cheek. There'll be tone all over the whole thing. The minute I'm just finding locations, and with some of these lines I'll have to rub them back because they're a little bit too harsh. Even though I've drawn lightly, some of these lines will still be too hard. What I'm doing at the moment is finding the form. Once I find the form, let's say for example that hair that I've had back here has moved to this point. So if I zoom in, she looks like a bit like a weird she won't let me say this. She looks like a weird Joker from Batman at the minute. That's okay. No, she doesn't look like a weird Batman from Joker. She's a very lovely looking lady. But what I'm doing is finding the forms of all of the structures and proportions of her face, and they're slowly starting to emerge from lots of observations of changing things around and moving things and allowing things not to be in the right place and developing them that way. You can't just scribble it all in. He says you totally get in trouble for that. He's right. Lucky enough she's not in the room. She'll probably see it later on catch up, and I'll probably get a dig. But it's said with love. She's a lovely looking lady, and at this stage I think I've done a few portraits of her and she kind of sees how the portraits progress, so she's kind of okay with it. But yes, it does look like a weird Joker at the minute from a cartoon novel. Andrea's very supportive. I'm very lucky. But I'm quite happy about, I can kind of see past the lines of what I put down there, and I can start to see some of the beginning parts of a portrait that I'll be happy to render. It's a great shadow there actually. I just want to put in, as I'm speaking, I'm seeing things in the artwork. That shadow line is really interesting because it really helps me find the structure of where this hair flows. It's like a triangle shape with a slightly curved base. It's easy to draw shapes like this. It's easier to draw this shape than it is to draw an eyes, a nose, ear, mouth, hair, whatever. But they often give you the structure of everything else. Now, it might seem quite random to draw an abstracted shape, but they can give you the sense and flow of everything else around it. Now I'm kind of drawing in, I'm going to slightly tone this area in a little bit for you. Again, I'm just doing this slightly. As that starts to come out, it gets lighter. The angle for that is almost vertical. So this hair as it comes up, this hair as it curves around, I've got too low down, it's actually further up. So it allows me to know where I've got this mark is actually up here, up a little bit further. It's about there. So again, any indicator marks that I had here, I'm going to take out because I've drawn lightly. Another benefit from holding your pencil further back as you're drawing. If you're pressing hard on the point like this with a tripod grip very close to the paper, it really pushes the graphite in, and as you try to rub it out, it leaves a ghost line. I don't want those to appear, so I'm drawing very, very lightly. I'm drawing almost with the edge or side of the charcoal, the graphite on the paper, not the point. Gives me a greater surface area to draw with, so for rendering a shadow shape, it's better. And what I'm going to do is take that line out as well. So just help that line as it comes through. Looking at the flow of that line, where it stops and goes, and using the rubber to readjust it. Really helps bring this shadow shape across a little bit. This is just a shape of a piece of hair, but it's really sculpted the kind of shape of the cheek, and as it goes down the side of the face and goes nearly under the chin and then lines up with the ribbon from a collar. So all of those things can build the shape and flow and form of your picture. If I lightly shadowed this entire thing, you can start to get depths, because where I'm pushing the shadows in for the eye orbits and where the eyes are going to be, it lifts then in comparison the cheeks, and they appear like they're looking further forward. I can take a shadow line, just a shadow down beside her nose, which is a little bit darker. Underneath nose here. Getting some shadowing. I'll put nice blocking in the shadow. I'm not doing scratchy lines, I'm actually building the shadow shape. I'm following the form, the shape of the shadow that I drew. But I'm not putting scratches in it, it's becoming a more solid shadow. Now this is the first part of rendering, if you like, but I'm quite happy with where things are at the moment. But if I needed to and adjust them, I can still do that, and none of this shadow will be, you know, I'm not putting a dark down, I'm putting a very light tone down. It's enough to give me a sense of where form starts, and I can build upon that. But at this stage, if I need to adjust it and I need to rub it out, I can, and it won't affect the drawing surface or the paper. So it keeps the flexibility. Vicky Thompson, you're over on Facebook. Hello, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. If you're an artist and you're working on your own artwork, let me know what you do. Share it with everybody else. I'm working on 3 different platforms at the moment. I've got Twitch, YouTube and Facebook all going at the same time. So I've got lots of people chatting on different screens. So if there's something you want to know, or something you're developing your own work, you're more than welcome to share what you're doing, and yeah, you can share it with everybody else. If you're an artist and you've got some tips, you can share them as well. There's lots of different ways of drawing. There's so much stuff I don't know that's out there. There's loads of stuff I don't know that's out there. So yeah, it's a great resource to kind of share little tips and things like that as well. So as I work on my drawing, I get to see areas that are working, areas that need work. There are always areas in your drawing that need to be improved, and I mean by you know, the form or shape of them, or things that don't quite look right, or you know, there's always an element that's not working and an element that is working. As part of drawing, make it part of your process, though you're not kind of when you're hit with it, it becomes a frustration or a reason not to draw. There's always areas in drawings that kind of need to move around a little bit, and even with what I'm looking at now, this remember this mark that I put in as a curve is too low down. It needs to come up a little bit, and it needs to come up to about there. So I'm going to follow the same line that I've had already, and just follow that in and around to get the idea of this curve. Funny thing is, it matches up here fine. So this part was right, this line was wrong, so I'm going to take that out. So I'm constantly readjusting areas in my drawing. I'm not thinking, oh well, that's perfect, it's got to fit. You know, if I change something up here, it can have like a domino effect to the drawing, but that's okay. I'll follow that domino effect through the drawing and adjust it, keep tweaking it as I go along. Quite happy with where this curve is as well, so it gives me a good basis to start lightly toning this in. And say, as I start to lightly tone this in, what you'll notice is the line that I've got of contouring a face will start to disappear into the shadow. So I'm not left with a line. What I'm left with is an entire area which is toned. Now I don't want to come all the way through here and keep it dark because there's quite a lot of light space here. So I might put this line in, comes out of the bottom of the shadow. It's just a little bit of highlight on a hair that curves around like that. So this area I'm going to lightly shade. Again, a tip for shading is not to scribble. Go in one direction and keep that direction all the way through. You know, if you change direction, say for example now, what you'll end up doing is putting in a texture. And if I start doing it that way, over that way, and then get bored and do it this way, I get 3 or 4 different layered effects of shadow on top of each other, and it can often create a texture, whereas I just at the minute I would just want to get a tonal block of tone. Now it's going to get darker as I progress the drawing. But what that does is it starts to lift that contour effect of her cheek. That starts to lift. And I keep building that I can keep building that shadow up. Again, I'm just using a very light application of a 2H lead from the propelling pencil. And it's the same if you're using a normal pencil. Propelling pencils are no different. It's just the difference is with these is it's got a consistent sharp point. But with my normal pencils, I often create a long point to them and have a bit of what I call it emery paper or sanding block, and I keep refining the edge of the point on that. So you can use sort of a P600 grade wet and dry emery paper. I've got a sanding block from Natrum that I use for charcoals as well, and I just keep the point refined and sharp. With propeller pencils it's one click, but the difference is I've got a longer, bigger drawing surface to draw with on a pencil. So rather than just drawing with a little tiny surface area, because you can't have a very elongated graphite coming out of your propelling pencils because they just snap off, or when they get to a certain stage they just drop out of the pencil. But I have a larger drawing surface area with a normal pencil. So for covering large areas, say for example like if I just lightly do this whole lapel area, it's easier to do it with a larger pencil than it is with a, say, mechanical pencil. And again, I'm just going to block in the whole tone. It may look like I'm doing it quickly, but because I've got a larger drawing surface area on the pencil, it fills it quicker. Now it's not about speed, but because it's a larger drawing surface area, I couldn't necessarily do that with a very small pencil, or I definitely couldn't do it with the tip of the pencil. So if you're holding a pencil like this, to fill all that in is going to be incredibly difficult and time consuming. So holding the pencil further back, using the pencil center, means I get a greater arc and coverage, which means I am generally going to cover this up quicker. And I'm putting the same level of pressure on this and just going over it a second time, but you can see already how dark that is getting in comparison with everything else, how much darker that tone has gotten. Again, I'm keeping the direction going in the same way, not changing that. I'm not worried about it too much if I go over the edges of the lines. I'm going to build this tone up anyway, and I can think about how the shape of flow of this hair that comes around here comes down, creates that kind of triangle shape. Now there's a bit of a darker bit here, which is where the lapel kind of meets up and becomes a point further down here somewhere. So let's see, if I was to make it lighter, I'm going to colour this in a second. I know that this bit, oops, that was me making a mistake. I accidentally just drew on my page by not concentrating. So let's get rid of that. So I drew really hardly on the paper there, so I have to scrub a little bit harder with the rubber. There might be a light ghosting, but luckily enough it's where there's going to be textures and things that'll be covered up. So who have we got still? We've got a couple more people watching us on Twitch. Hello, welcome to YouTube. I can't see how many people are watching on YouTube. It doesn't actually let me know. Can't see. And over on Facebook, we've got one. So it's funny how different, been more people in different streams at different points throughout the whole stream. So it's different how people use social media for different things, and how much time they have on it. Twitch, I've noticed that people will literally just put it on in the background and will do their own thing too. So it can be, as guys that I've been doing Twitch streams, like leave it on like 4, 5, 6+ hours, and it's quite almost hypnotic to have something else going on in the background. It's quite interesting. So let's put a darker line along this edge, just to give me a bit of contour and context to where this lapel is. And with this area, it's slightly darker. It comes off in that angle. So I know that this whole area is darker. I'm just giving it an indication. It's going to get a lot darker than this, but the indication of these forms and shapes really inform where the hair is. It informs the body shape. It can seem such a small detail, a small thing, a dark shadow over the side of a collar that you can hardly see because there's hair going over it. You know, there's wisps of light that comes through this, which is hair. This whole area is darker as well because it's part of the collar that comes up and around. So I'll tone in that. But as you start to build all these tones together, what you start to build in is the structure of the hair, the neck, the head. And then this is all toned as well, so I'm going to tone in that. Now this line here is actually the part of her collar. Is that right? Where's choker? Not a collar. He's not a dog. A choker. Michael, you're saying maybe I can do 6 hours next week. You never know. You never know. I promise not to do that to you. I won't do 6 hours. God, could you imagine me doing 6 hours here? I take my hat off to the guys who do it. I suppose it's okay if you are unnecessarily, you're not necessarily chatting and drawing at the same time, that you are actually just getting on with your work, and it just happens to be recording. I get that. But to kind of engage and chat with a camera for 6 hours is quite impressive. You know, that's quite a skill to have. Ethan, you're saying over on Twitch that yeah, it's like having company or listening to a documentary when you're working. Yeah, I get that. It's good. I do that. I'll stick on podcasts an awful lot when I'm doing my thing. Probably when I finish this and I carry on with the portrait, I will put on a podcast or sometimes even a movie, and I'll just have that playing in the background as I'm working. I'm just putting that little bit of highlight in just there, purely and simply to give me a sense of where these forms are going. Now I'm going to go dark a little bit more over this whole area, just because it is so dark. Now it's far away from her face, and you know, I don't want to get sucked in too much into too much rendering of a shadow here, but this is one of the darker shadows I've got on the face. So as I start to build shadows up, I've got a dark reference to work from. Now it's going to be darker than that, but I can build up that darkness. So tonality wise, needs to be one of the. This is all light application of pencil, so I can rub any of these marks out and it won't affect the drawing. But I need to have that as a little bit darker than the rest, because it will help me then put in the rest of the darker tones. So areas like the choker that she's got on, so it's not I called it a collar. The choker that she's got on is darker. So as I start to build that tone up to be the same as this tone, it will make this tone really light, but not all of that is really light, so I can start to then put in the shadow shape of some of these shadows. And that starts to build up the form of her body that goes into her neck. It indicates the shadow shape of her chin shadow. It can come out a little bit further. It's a little bit narrower here. That curve is actually the top part of that choker. It's not the under part of her chin. So your eyes can trick you a little bit. When you're looking at something, just cursorily, just glancing across something, you might look at that and just go, oh yeah, your chin comes right down here. That isn't the under part of her chin, that's her neck. The chin shadow is actually above it here. That's the end of her chin, not this bit. Ooh. So if you can see that on the screen. So yeah, so that's the end of her chin, not this bit. This is the edge of the choker as it goes around her neck, and this part is actually neck, and that part is the chin. And if you sort of cursively looked at the picture and just tried to draw it, you might move her chin down too far, which means she's got a really big thick chin like Desperate Dan. And if you left that in your drawing, it would look weird and it wouldn't look like Andrea. So you've got to really look at what shadow are you looking at, what light are you looking at, really investigate it. Don't think you see it, really look at it and spend time looking at that picture. You know, a good thing about having it printed means you can really study the picture. If your life model is sat there, you've got to really study the life model. You can't guess where things are, you've got to look at it and see it and compare it with your picture and see what the shapes are that you're actually looking at. try to learn and understand the different aspects of the planes of the head, so it helps you then render them in your drawings. Hope that makes sense. Alex, you were over on Twitch. Well done. You found Twitch kept starting and stopping worse than YouTube, but you'll try again. No problem. I know it's frustration. We were watching Facebook, a live broadcast on Facebook last night, and it kept stopping on the laptop that we had fed into the TV, but it worked on our mobile phones. So sometimes devices and how they get the signal sometimes are different from one another. So yeah, it depends on what device you're watching it on, how you're screening it, different rates, things like that. I know it's frustrating, but anyway. Okay, I've done nearly 2.5 hours, and probably I did an awful lot of waffling with cameras and stuff at the beginning, so kind of caught up. Hopefully that is helping you a little bit. Andy Pandy, thank you for the follow. That was over on YouTube, appreciate that. Or was it on Facebook? I forget where you are now. You were on Twitch, sorry. Yeah, you're over on Twitch, thank you for that, appreciate it. I'm going to kind of call it a day now for this podcast. I'll probably carry on with the portrait though, and I might pop onto Twitch later on in the week, or tomorrow, whatever. But I will definitely be back at 2 o'clock next Saturday, across all 3 formats, to do another art cat. In the meantime, if there's anything you want to know, you want to get a bit more instruction about your drawing, if you have a problem with it, if you get stuck and you don't feel comfortable doing it in the chat bar, you're more than welcome to message me through Facebook on my Are You a Suspect Device? Are you referring to my lovely Stiff Little Fingers t-shirt? I probably am, yes. It's one of their songs, a punk song from back in the day. Yeah, if you have any problems with the artwork and you want to know some tips, you're more than welcome to fire me a message and I'll try and answer them for you. Or you can pop them up here whenever you feel comfortable. Guys, thank you very much for being with us. Really appreciate it. It's nice to see different formats all coming together in one place. And hopefully we can build this a little bit as well. So if you like it, follow it, share it, subscribe to it, whichever it is in your platform, social media platform. If you think it might be a benefit to the artists that you know, please share it with them as well. The more the merrier. The bigger the conversations that we have, the more interesting it is. Do go and check out Dan Ferguson out on Instagram. He's got an interesting broadcast on Fridays. I don't think it's a specific time. He just literally switches it on and he paints and he answers his questions, which is really good, really informative as well. Lots of tips there, builds a nice community. Okay, so I shall say adieu to everybody and start clicking down my pages so I can get back to the screen, because otherwise I can't see it. There we are. So yeah, really appreciate it, guys. So I'll finish off the end stream now, and hopefully you'll see either a little bit of Andrea through the week, me continue the drawing, or you might see the end result next week and it'll be something brand new up on there. I will be continuing doing the painting of the mammalian drawing, the painting that I had up. I'm going to carry on with that as well, so depending on what I'm working on, it's nice to work on